came out after the surgery and said to my wife, look, and of course it's their job, to not build up false hopes.
Right.
But he said, look, it's bad. Here's how bad it is. We don't know how long he was without oxygen. So if he wakes up, we don't know what kind of a brain he's going to have left, what kind of a mind he will have left. And there is less than a 1% chance that he will ever be able to move again.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Appreciate you being here. It's great to see you again. Today's guest has lived a life that spans service, family, faith, adventure, and miracles. Born in St. Louis in 1959, he served in the United States Air Force, married the girl of his dreams, raised two amazing daughters, and dedicated a year of his life to serve God in Lithuania. In 2021, a devastating sports accident left him with 1% chance of ever moving again. But through faith, prayer, and what he calls undeniable miracles, he is alive and walking today. Along with music, photography, reading, travel, and a love for the beloved St. Louis Cardinals, Dan's story is about resilience, hope, and the dash of life between the first and that last day. This is Dan's Dash Story. Dan, welcome. We appreciate you being here. Let's start at the very beginning. What was life like growing up in St. Louis in the 1960s and 70s?
Okay, so I grew up between St. Louis County and a small town named DeSoto, about 50 miles south of St. Louis. My dad's family was in DeSoto. My mom's was in the St. Louis County area.
Okay.
So we bounced back and forth 2 or 3 times as a young child, and then settled in DeSoto when I entered ninth grade. St. Louis County was great for me in the 60s and early 70s. We left there about 72 or so. It was still plenty safe to, walk to the local library a mile and a half away, and
All by yourself?
all by myself.
Yeah.
And plenty of. We lived actually catty corner from the elementary school, so we had access to the field, and that's where we played ball and rode bikes, and there was even a hill there, so we rode our sleds.
Awesome.
So that was great. But when we lived in DeSoto and those high school years especially, we could walk to the creek, swim all day. It was a town of maybe 6,000 or 7,000 people. So you could walk just about everywhere. My uncle had a farm, a couple hundred acres. So during high school, I pitched hay in the summer, and me and my cousin, walked all over his farm and his neighbors.
Right.
Totaled about 500 acres. We always said you could blindfold us and drop us in that 500 acres, and we would tell you where we were, and where we needed to go.
That's cool, yeah.
We knew it inside out.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. So, but you had I guess, the best of both worlds, because you had the city,
Yes.
and you had the country life.
Right.
Which one did you like more?
At the time, I liked the country life better, but now I'm a city guy.
Ah, okay. Yeah, that's good. So do you have brothers or sisters?
Yes, I have 3 sisters and 2 brothers. I'm the oldest, and 2 of the sisters are twins.
Okay. And then were you close? How close in age were you?
It was very evenly spaced. I was 2.5 years older than the twins, 5 years older than the next brother, 8.5 years older than the next sister, and 11 years older than the final brother.
Oh,
10
wow.
years, 10 months. So it was about every 2.5, 3 years we had, more babies coming to the family.
So when you were in the Air Force, your littlest brother was...
He was like going into 2nd grade.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a big difference. Did you guys get along? I mean, you probably didn't even really know. I mean, you were like big brother, but...
Right. He was, he was just the little kid.
Right.
I liked him fine, but you didn't go do stuff
Right,
with him,
right.
So And I went in the Air Force 2 days after I turned 18.
Okay.
My birthday fell in such a way that I turned 5 and started kindergarten immediately.
Right.
So I was only 17 when I graduated.
But you graduated in 1976 or 77?
77.
77. So you're 1 year off the bicentennial year.
Yep.
But you're in the middle of bell bottoms, puka
Oh,
shells.
yeah. White belts.
Yes, white belts, the big old,
The striped pants.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
Were you
All of it.
were you into disco at the time?
No.
Okay, because you were
Very anti-disco.
anti-disco. Okay, so you would have been in the White Sox throwing those records if you had a
Yeah,
chance.
exactly. Yes.
What was it? What or who shaped you the most as a kid? Then.
I think it's a combination of things. Mostly family, of course.
Mm-hmm.
My dad and my uncle and my grandpa, living grandpa, were all the kind of people that just worked. If there was something to be done, you worked.
Right.
You did it. And so I had that example that you get things done, you stick with it till it's fixed. If you don't, we didn't have a lot of money,
Right.
so you fixed a lot of things yourself. So that formed me a lot to be kind of independent and determined.
Mm-hmm.
In our family, we call it bullheaded, that we just won't quit.
Yeah.
um,
Self-reliant though.
Exactly.
Bullheaded. You can look at it different ways.
and we were always members of a church, and
Yeah.
had strong church community and
Mm-hmm.
faith in God. And so a lot of my friends were either cousins or church people.
Right.
Of course, school, as well.
Right.
But I think that the family formation and the deep faith in God were the key factors
Mm-hmm.
that led to where I finally ended up.
Right. Right.
Took
No.
some detours on the way.
Of course, we all do. What did your dad do?
Say again.
What did your dad do for work?
So my dad was in the Air Force before he got married, and then after he was married, he was working for the U.S. government in the Department of Records.
Okay.
You may have heard years ago St. Louis had a huge fire that
Yeah,
burned
yeah,
up a
I
bunch
did.
of the military records.
Oh, okay,
He
yeah.
worked at that place. But during that, when I was about 3, he threw out his back, and of course, nobody really knew then the extent of the injury until one day he couldn't walk. And then they, found out he had slipped a disc and pinched the nerve so bad in his lower back that they had to do surgery. And so over time, he had 3 major surgeries. None of them actually fixed the problem and restored him totally. He was able to walk and do things, but after 2 or 3 hours, he just had to go get horizontal and take the pressure off of the whole spine system. So he was classified as 100% disabled by
Right.
the U.S. government when I was 4 or 5, and
Yeah.
so
What was that like when you were 4 and 5 and your dad was basically horizontal, as you said?
Well, again, he still displayed that never quit, do everything
Right.
that I can kind of
Right.
thing. And as a kid, you don't really register. I would say I was probably 8, 9, 10 before it really started to make sense to me that Dad had a lot of pain and had to overcome a lot of pain to do everything that he did. So probably made me more sensitive to when people have something they're fighting
Right.
through, realizing you don't really know what other people are going through.
Did you play a lot of Little League or
No organized. I was always blessed to have tons of people around in the St. Louis area,
Right.
and so we played plenty. We had a family that lived 2 houses down that had 9 kids.
Ooh.
So we had automatic teams.
Yeah, automatically you got 9, yeah.
So, and then when I got a little older, we played one-on-one everything. We'd play one-on-one, overhand, fast-pitch softball. We
Yeah.
just made games up. Hockey, tackle football.
Right.
One-on-one tackle football is a
Yeah.
lot of fun. And then when we moved to DeSoto permanently, when I was entering 9th grade, played a lot of church ball, just with church friends and
Right.
stuff. And never really pursued anything with high
Right.
school. Uh,
So did your parents, did they grow up in that area too?
so my dad grew up in the DeSoto area,
Okay.
and my mom grew up in the St. Louis County
Right.
area.
What did your dad's parents do, or your mom's parents do?
Um, wow.
I know.
My mom's
Curveball.
mom was a homemaker, which is more than a full-time job, especially
Evidently, yeah.
with kids. And her stepdad actually was one of those guys that worked all the time. He
Right.
worked for the Bi-State Bus Company, which is sort of like DART,
Okay.
in maintenance and repair and stuff. But
Hmm.
that was a late night shift, so he'd get off of that and go drive a school bus. And in between school bus runs, he'd go work at the local gas station. He was just constantly working.
Wow.
My other grandpa died when I was about 6. He was in World War I, a
Okay.
doughboy over in France,
Oy.
and they think that they know he was exposed to mustard gas. They think that kind of hastened his
Hmm.
death. He died of officially heart failure, but had lung
Right.
problems and things like that too.
For a lot of people that may not know, some of the younger people, World War I, they did a lot of trench warfare, and
Right.
mustard gas was.
It was basically toxic gas, chlorine base,
Hmm.
right? That they would drop shells and it sinks. It's heavier than air. So it would sit on the ground and even flow down into the trenches. And of course, they had rudimentary gas masks,
Right.
but they were not totally effective. And if
Right.
you were, small exposures had lasting impact.
Right. Was there a challenge when you were growing up that kind of prepared you for later on, that you kind of grew through, that prepared you for later battles?
Um, Personally, no, but just, watching what my dad went through to
Right.
be able to just continue
Right.
to be successful, raise a family. We were not well off by any means, and
Right.
so, everything that broke, we had to figure out how to fix it ourselves and that kind of stuff. And so that kind of prepared me to be self-sufficient and relentless. Um,
What was your mom like?
my mom is very similar in that she just, works and works. So with my dad disabled, he did get something from the government, but she worked in a variety of things, office and not secretarial, more like today we'd call it like data processing
Okay.
type
Yeah.
of
Yep.
jobs.
Yep. Yep.
Back then it was much more paper driven. Um, and ultimately, she basically ran a bookstore for, I think, probably 8 or 9 years, a Christian bookstore,
Okay. In DeSoto area or
actually in St. Louis
St.
County.
Louis? Okay.
Yeah. So she commuted back and forth once we moved down to DeSoto.
Right. What's a memory you have from childhood that still brings you a smile nowadays?
Man, lots of them, I guess. One of my favorite ones is in '67 in third grade. Our teacher wheeled a TV into the classroom, watched the '67 World Series on TV, which the Cardinals won in 7 games over the Red Sox.
Yeah.
Got to see Bob Gibson pitch. Back then you didn't see a lot of TV games at all,
Right.
uh, and so it was a double treat.
And did they? I don't remember. Now the World Series was always played during the day in those days, right? It
Right.
wasn't at night.
Yeah, there weren't night
So
games.
it was a big treat when you would see, the teacher wheel that in, because yeah,
Yeah,
watching
because
the Cardinals.
otherwise you're just basically going home and
Right.
asking who was listening to the radio.
Right.
We're not in New York. There was not a big ticker
Right. Yeah.
reporting scores out.
Not at DeSoto, there wasn't.
No.
Yeah. And then from those early lessons, you went on to serve our country with the United States Air Force, right? What led you to join the Air Force?
Basically, when I was in ninth grade, I knew, being the oldest of 6 and with our financial situation, there was no way I was going straight into college,
Right.
without a bunch of debt and stuff. And so I came home one day and I said, hey, when I graduate, I'm going in the Air Force. My mom was like, no, you're too young.
Yeah.
But it made a lot of sense for me because it was a way to get trained and be paid,
Right.
and have a challenge. And honestly, being the oldest of six, you're ready to leave. So
I got to get out of the house.
yeah.
I want a room by myself.
Literally 3 days after I turned 18, I was in San Antonio for basic training.
What made you choose the Air Force then, instead of the Army or Navy or?
Well, the tongue-in-cheek answer is, I looked at everything. It's like, man, they have the easiest basic training, and they respect, using your brains versus standing out there to be shot at.
Right.
Uh, but honestly, it
Two
was,
good points.
yeah, those were valuable. And of course, I grew up in the Vietnam era.
Right.
My daughters, we've talked. I said, look, until I was in ninth grade, I assumed I was going to Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until the ninth or 10th grade that the war actually finally ended. And so, but bottom line was my dad was in the Air Force, actually Army Air Corps when he was in. And then I did want to do something technical, and in my senior year, I was in a VOTEC program. So half the day I went out to a community college, and I worked in TV and radio repair classes. Not worked, but was
Right.
learned. And so I felt like the Air Force would give me the best chance,
Right.
to do something like that, and it did. So,
And you said you got off the bus in San Antonio. What was that like? Like, what was your first memory when you got off the bus there in San Antonio?
so you fly in.
Right. Okay.
We flew in from St. Louis, and they bus us from the San Antonio airport to Lackland Air Force Base. It's about, I don't know, 10 o'clock at night. They take us to midnight shower. You got 30 of us had all been hanging out at the St. Louis Induction Center, right? So we had met all these guys, formed these instant friendships. My cousin went in the same day I did,
Okay.
went through basic with me, and we went to tech school at the same place.
The same cousin that you explored all that.
All over the farmland
Okay.
with
Got
my
it.
aunt.
Okay.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
good though.
Yeah, it was great to have a buddy. But we come out of midnight chow, and we all had these little duffel bags, and it sounds so cliche and like stuff you see in the movies, but we come out of there, and the guys, like the drill sergeant or whatever they called him, T.I. I think was their name, says, pick up your bags. And all of us are like 18-year-old guys, so we just slump around and pick up our bags and stand there slashing. He loses his mind. I said, pick up your bags. When I say pick them up, you pick them up. And when I say put them down, you put them down. Now put them down. Pick them up. Put them down. Pick them up. And that goes on for about 10 minutes. And we're all looking at each other like, oh no, what have we gotten ourselves into? That was the standout memory to begin the Air Force time.
Wake up call, real quick.
Yeah.
How did military life though shape your approach to marriage and family later on? Then.
It was, you had a lot of freedom, once you got out of tech training. So I think I went in end of August, and middle of April I was out of tech training and went to my permanent station, right? So once you're at your permanent station, you're pretty much independent except when you're on duty, right? Which is normally 8 to 9 hours a day, unless there's a drill or an incident and you're on 12-hour shifts, or you go on TDY for big deployment kind of things. So what it kind of did for me was show me, how to be responsible to go into a job every day, and perform, whether you kind of felt like it or not. But at the same time, let me find out kind of the consequences of not having discipline in my non-work life, because basically you got a bunch of 18, 19, 20-year-old guys with a few dollars in their pocket,
Right.
the kind of trouble you can get into.
Right.
And we got into all of it for sure.
What's one of your better memories of the Air Force when you were there? Now, were you ever deployed?
I was not, but I went to England 3 times as part of a NATO force
Okay.
that we would bring 20. We worked on C-130s, which are, we call them trash haulers. They would haul troops and let them parachute out, or we'd haul tanks. They do low altitude parachute extraction,
Mm-hmm.
LAPS drops, or just bring in supplies. So we would bring 20 planes over to Mildenhall, England for 2 months, and we were cycling with 2 other Air Force bases, so there were always 20 American planes at that base doing exercises. I kind of lost the key part of your question
Oh,
there.
that's all right. That's all right. I was just trying to think, was there a memory or something you had in there, and then I kind of
Yeah.
interrupted you.
So while we were there, we had always worked those planes to death before we brought them, right? So they were in tip-top shape. So we rarely had a lot of problems. I was in communications, so air to air, air to ground, radios, and the intercom systems and those things. But still, stuff broke, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you rode a launch truck in the morning and you fixed whatever broke right before they took off and those kind of things. But one day, uh, one of my coworkers comes in and she was in tears. It's like 3 in the morning. I'm supposed to go to work at 7. She's like, I've got this plane and it's a disaster. None of the radios work. I've been working all night. I can't figure out what's going on. I'm like, it's ours. And she's like, no, it's a National Guard plane. Well, we all had an attitude about the level of maintenance that went into that plane anyway. I'm like, oh, I'll be the hero. I can fix it tomorrow. I could not fix it tomorrow.
Whoa.
I did fix some things,
Right.
but literally she was right. Like none of the radios were working,
Oh.
and we swapped one out and got that going. And we spent all day. My boss comes out there and he's like, just stunned. At a certain point, he's like, okay, we're getting it to this point and we're sending them back to wherever they came from.
Right.
you know
We did the best we could.
so, well, we had it flyable then. They could at
Right.
least communicate on the way home. But
How long were you in the Air Force?
I did 4 years, and then I did a 5-month extension. So I was in for 4.5.
Wow. And did you learn a lot there?
Yeah, I mean, I was learned a lot about radios. That was helpful to my future career
Right.
in the telecommunications business, um, and learned a lot about life and friends and
Right. What's something the military
traveling.
teaches people that normal civilians don't understand?
I think it's how accountable you are to your whole unit. And I would say, certainly, Marines and Army know that far better than maintenance guys in the Air Force. I
Right.
don't want to get any of us in
Right.
trouble with inter-service rivalries, but their lives depend on it, and
Right.
especially Marines and Army. Uh, but even in the Air Force, if I don't do my job well, somebody else is paying the consequences.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's the people on the flight, or the people on my team that have to go, clean up the mess.
Right.
And that when we all did our job well, it was so much easier.
Right.
you know. And so we had a really great team in the communications squad
Right.
that we just really worked to make sure our planes were in great shape.
Yeah, there was a little responsibility there
Yeah.
to make sure, not necessarily for you, but the guys that are taking the planes on it, you were responsible for that.
Right.
That's important. Yeah. So where did you go after the Air Force?
So I got out in '82, which was a terrible economy to
Mhm.
get out, January of '82.
Mm-hmm.
Spent a year looking for a job, just doing every little thing I could find. Finally, started working in a TV repair shop
Where at? Are we
in DeSoto,
okay? Back
back in
home.
DeSoto. Whole time I was dating my wife to be.
Ah.
I had known her for a lot of years before that, but we had never dated seriously
Right.
until literally a month before I got out was our first actual serious date.
All right.
So I was in the DeSoto area, and our pastor, we were had a wedding planned for '83, summer of '83, and our pastor asked us if we would start a Christian school. So we did that for a couple of years, but financially it was just like at the end of 2 years I met with him and I said, I have got to make enough money to actually feed my family.
Right. Yeah.
And so I moved on from there.
So okay. So but um, where did you meet your wife at? In high school or in DeSoto?
In DeSoto.
Okay, in
At
DeSoto.
church.
Okay, in church. Okay.
Yeah.
So what was about her that made you go, hey, you noticed her right? What was it? Something about her you noticed?
Well, to me, she's the most beautiful girl in the entire world.
Right.
Still. But the first time I saw her, I was with my cousin. I was like, "Did you see that girl?" He's like, "No," like I did. Well, this was like on the street, just passing by. She's a little older than me, so she wasn't in high school with us, right? And so, like a matter of a couple months later, there she was at church.
Ah.
So, I always tease her. I've been in love with her for 50 years, and she's only been in love with me for like 43 because she didn't know.
Slacker.
Yeah, slacker. So, we met at church. She worked with my mom in Sunday school. I eventually started working in Sunday school because I didn't want to go to Sunday school anymore.
Right.
My mom's like, you can either go or you can teach. Those are your options.
A or B. That was
I
it.
took B.
Right. So what was the first when you asked her out on a date? What was that like?
Actually, it was easy because when I went to we had always chummed around and joked around about, oh, you could pass for younger, I could pass for older.
Right.
We'll just be married.
Right.
And so when I went to the Air Force, when I'd come home, we would just go out like two friends.
Right.
And catch up. And nothing to it. Now, in my mind,
There was something to it.
yeah, but it wasn't that I was, trying to build to something. It was just like, I know this will never happen, but I still really like her,
Right.
being around her kind of thing. So right before I got out of the Air Force, we did one of those, and it just, that particular night, we were driving home, and I don't want to get too detailed for the whole world, but just basically I, indicated that I actually was really interested in her, and
Right.
she was surprisingly interested in me. So
There we go.
away we go.
Yeah. Awesome. So I would think you knew you wanted to marry her, but how long was it till you decided to ask her to marry you?
Oh, like instantaneously.
Okay, so how did you do it? I'm always interested in how people ask people to marry you.
So I have probably asked her to marry me, I don't know, 4,000 or 5,000 times.
Okay.
I still ask her to marry me.
Okay,
Every
all
time
right.
we go somewhere new,
Okay.
I'm like, hey, will you marry me? She says, I have 2 rotten kids. And I say, yeah, I know, they're legendary. Which my daughters will, appreciate hearing that. So somewhere very early on in the dating, to round out the story, she was living for God and I was not when
Right.
we had that first serious date. And I was adamantly not living for God. I was, wasting my life away. And so I knew that wouldn't work long term.
Right.
So I felt like I have to get it out, because if she's not going to be interested in marrying me someday,
Right.
then I'm not giving up all of this partying,
Right.
concert going, and all of this crazy stuff that I'm
Right.
doing. So somewhere very early on, I'm like, would you marry me? Is it conceivable?
Is
Not
it something you're
asking
thinking
you,
about?
will you marry me?
You're not officially asking, but
Yes,
yeah.
I'm just putting out the feelers. And she's like, well, I could. Yes. I'm not saying yes.
Yeah. She didn't throw up or
Right.
anything like
She
that.
didn't say no.
Yeah, you had hope.
I had hope. That's all I needed.
Where'd you get married at?
In
In DeSoto, at the same church?
Small town, Hillsboro.
Right. Right.
which is like right next to DeSoto.
Right.
Yeah.
And you grew. I mean, and right away you lived in DeSoto.
Yes.
All right.
She was teaching school in DeSoto at the
Ah.
time.
Okay. So, what has marriage taught you about partnership and commitment then?
So I always tell people that ask, like, what's the key to staying married?
Mm-hmm.
We've been married 42 and a half years now. I say, and it's not easy, but it's number one, you need to love them more than you love yourself.
Okay.
And number two, you need to remember they are not psychic.
Okay. Good point.
And when I was in rehab, one girl that was about to get married asked me that question. She's like, "Well, what do you mean?" I'm like, "Look, you will be amazed how fast you start thinking, why doesn't he know that I want this or that or don't want this or that?" I said, "It's because he's not psychic. He does not know."
Right.
And I think that all of us just tend to assume, that they're making a choice to ignore what you wanted or didn't want. They're not. They just didn't
Right.
know.
All right. So we mentioned the holy terrors you brought up, or your daughters,
Yes.
and what are you most proud about your daughters?
Everything. Um, they are both super strong women that are deeply, deeply caring about other people. My oldest, I just told her the other day, we were making a crack about, would she do something uh, relating to family? And I said, we know without asking you, because if anybody needs anything, you show up.
Mm.
You know, she is just, deeply caring, especially for friends and acquaintances. She shows up for people that, you know, hardly, I wouldn't say hardly know her, but not deep friendships. She
Mm-hmm.
shows up for anybody. And my youngest is the same way, but is also much more focused on people who are more disadvantaged in the
Mm.
community.
Mm-hmm.
She will fight you tooth and nail if she thinks you're mistreating somebody.
Right. What was it like? Because I remember mine, but what was it like the very first time you were a father and you were staring at your daughter? What was that like?
It was pretty astounding.
Yeah.
Um, I was, very comfortable around babies, being the oldest of six and
Mm-hmm. Got
having,
it. You were kind of used
I
to it.
think, somewhere around 27 cousins or something like that.
Man alive.
Yeah, I mean, I
You're a
was
small
around
country.
babies all my life.
Yeah.
So that part was not a big deal, but to hold my daughter was just unbelievable,
Right.
especially knowing where I had been, just 4 years before,
Right.
because I had just assumed, well, I'm just going to be a bachelor all my life, because
Right.
if I can't marry my wife, then I'm not marrying
Right.
anybody else.
So, what values did you hope to pass on to them?
Love of God and love of people, and being dependable
Right.
and resilient and you know relentless.
Well, and then, okay, so after marriage, a little bit, it came a unique chapter. You were stepping away everything to serve God, right? So you were working. You retired early, you said, and dedicated a year to God.
Yes.
And if I get mixed up on this timeline, I apologize here real quick. But what sparked that calling?
So from the time we were married, uh, my wife and I were always big supporters of missions.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have a lot of money, especially early on.
Yeah.
But we always tried to give something towards some missionaries.
Right.
And so when my oldest daughter started college, we were talking one day, and we were talking about how much God had blessed us, and how well we were doing. And we're like, I said, if if this keeps up, for another 10 years, and we get the girls through college, and we're still in good shape, we should look at doing something big for God.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wasn't long after that that we thought, what would be awesome is to go somewhere in a foreign field and assist a missionary,
Mm-hmm.
because she and I are workers. We're not, we don't sing or preach or do
Right.
any of the traditional preacher stuff,
Right.
right?
Right.
We're teachers and we're workers, and we just like to put our shoulder to the wheel kind
Right.
of
What you
thing.
need to get done, we'll get it done.
And we were saying, I know these missionaries, they go over to some place with the burden to evangelize, right, reach people, but as soon as they have success, then they have to become workers. So
Mm-hmm.
we felt like that would be valuable, and we got excited about the idea. And 10 years later, we were like, it's in reach. We can keep working and accumulating, or we can start to live life as intended,
Right.
and give something back to God.
And so your wife felt the same way. I would
Yes.
imagine so. And where were you working at the time?
I was working for a company called USNet out of Arlington. I had been with MCI,
Okay.
the communications company
Mm-hmm.
that tore down AT&T, and then WorldCom bought us. Then we kind of ate WorldCom as WorldCom was bankrupted, and then Verizon bought us. And so I left there in 2010 after 20 some odd years. And
So is that how you got from DeSoto to Texas?
yeah, I worked on the road for MCI for 3 years,
Okay.
2.5 years, building network.
Mm.
Uh,
So you're one of
uh,
those smart guys.
like I said, I'm a worker.
Yeah. Okay. But you also sound like like your grandparents and your dad. You didn't stop. You just kept working and working and working and working.
Right. I mean, I remember when the first day I went to a site with MCI, here I had what they call radio telephone operator license from the FCC, right? It's supposed to be a big deal. I mean, you
Right.
really know a lot of stuff. And I walked into that room and I'm like, I don't have the faintest idea what I am looking at. I don't know anything.
Yeah.
you know,
Uh-oh.
in a matter of months, I'm out on sites by myself doing stuff. You just had to
Right.
learn. Um,
So when you went into you able to retire and went into the missions field as a worker or
right.
helper or right hand man or whatever you want to call it. And what was it when stepping away? When you stepped away, was that scary, freeing? Was it exciting? Was it nervous at the same time? What was that like?
For us, it was very freeing. We are, um, there's more than one type of retiree by far, but
Hmm.
we're the type that is like, our days are absolutely full
Right.
as retired people,
Right.
right? We're like, I don't know how on earth we ever went to work for 10 hours a
Yeah.
day.
We got all this other stuff to do.
I got too much to do.
Yeah.
So for us, retirement was just like, wow, we can do all the things we want to do,
Hmm.
even though, a lot of it is reading or learning to golf or,
Right.
whatever, right? But then she retired in May of 2013. I retired in November of 2013. Um, Actually, I tell people she retired and I quit working. Um, but and then in 1st of March in 2014, we flew to Lithuania to live there for the rest of the year for
And what
2014.
how did you choose Lithuania?
So the pastor we had back in that window when I said 10 years before, right,
Hmm.
had we had talked to him about our heart for giving to missions, and he's like, hey, I know this couple that basically just a few years ago they sold everything and moved to Lithuania lock, stock, and barrel. They're the typical mission model in our church world was you would go through the states and raise money for
Hmm.
however long it took to raise support, and then you'd go live in a country for 4 years, and then you'd have to come back to the states
Right.
and re-raise money, right? Raise that support, and a lot of times the churches wouldn't like fall apart, but depending on the international or the nation that they were in and the culture, some of them did, dwindle to nothing because they'd be gone for a year or more, right? So these people were like, no, that's not what we're doing. We're going to figure out a way to survive and just live there, right?
Right.
So we started supporting them, and then just with some giving. I mean, we were by far not the sole support. We were just
Right.
a drop in the bucket. But when we were planning in early 2013, to go do this, we started through the process of, what's out there. The whole world is out there, but you need to be wanted.
Spin the globe.
Yeah, and you need to be used. And we were connected through our pastors at the time to some people in New Zealand, and it really looked like we were going to end up in New Zealand. Um, in fact, I had a friend. He's like, so you're going to New Zealand? I'm like, well, if that's what God wants, that's where we're going.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, if that's not where God wants me, it'll fall apart.
Right.
And he's like, oh, there's no way it falls apart. You guys are like gold, you're
Right.
self-funded. You're not asking anybody to support you. You're just, sure enough, it
Fell apart.
fell apart. Totally fell
Yeah.
apart. So our pastor reached out to the folks in Lithuania, and they were very open-minded. And so we flew over there. Literally the day after I quit working, we flew to Lithuania and spent a couple weeks there. And I am not exaggerating. We walked through the city of Vilnius that first day. Well, you get there at night, so the next day, but our first day, and just fell in love. It was clearly the place where our heart was going to be.
Mm-hmm. And what's Lithuania like?
It's now it's a very modern European city. Vilnius is. The rest of the country is. There's two other decent sized cities, and all the countryside is like very Arkansas-ish.
Okay.
Not like northwestern Ozark Mountains,
Right.
Arkansas, more the rolling hills kind of
Right.
Arkansas. They grow a lot of canola, have a lot of pine forest. It's not a real wealthy country. There's 2.5 million people, and I think 600 plus thousand of them live in Vilnius.
Okay.
But Vilnius is, very much like a modern, booming growth European city.
How were you able to communicate? I mean, they speak Lithuanian.
They speak Lithuanian.
Okay, and you grew up in St. Louis,
Yes.
not a whole big Lithuanian area there. So how did
No,
you learn
but there is a big Lithuanian population in Chicago.
Well, there we go. So how were you able to communicate?
Most of them speak English.
Oh.
Most of the
Okay.
young people, certainly 30 and under, speak English quite well. It's kind of I think it's mandatory in high school these days.
Wow, okay.
That they learn English plus another foreign language plus their own language. Lithuanian is like, I think they say the third or fourth hardest language in the world to learn. We picked up, I'm going to say, 300 or 400 or 500 words, that we could piece our way through a grocery store,
Right.
and go, oh, Vistina, that's chicken, or Jotena, that's beef, and those kind of things. And but a lot of the stuff, even in the stores, is marked in Lithuanian, and there's English somewhere on there, or
wow.
a picture or whatever.
That helped.
I think this is cherry jelly.
I hope it is.
So
So what's one of the your more memorable memories? I think that's a double entendre there, but
Yeah.
what's one of your bigger memories from Lithuania? Especially the early years, because you go back every year now.
yeah,
Okay.
so that's what I was going to say. One of the biggest memories is that our hope was wherever we went would be a place that we wanted to go back and people wanted us to come back,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so by the time we left, we felt very much that way, that we can't wait to come back.
Mm.
And so one of my favorite early memories is we left, you know, mid-December of 2014, came home. We went back there in 2015, helped with we're over there for 4 or 6 weeks and helped do a youth camp. In 2016, we went back. 2017, I think, was when the big hailstorm in Wiley came. I don't know if you're aware of it, but it literally threw hail through the roofs all the way through the sheetrock, and a
Wow.
large portion. Our house was devastated.
Oh.
We had hundreds of holes like this big around in
Yes.
our roof. And we were supposed to go to Lithuania in like 4 weeks.
Mm.
And there were, I think they said, like 5,000 houses damaged. So the competition for roofers and all of that stuff was crazy. But I'm an organizer and a planner, and I'm like, I'm not dealing with any GC. I'm the GC. And so I had a roof in a week and a half.
Nice.
And I had floors in, and then some friends from church came. We started putting up sheetrock. And so we had the house just barely hung together, and we left for Lithuania. And I was in this mode of like, why am I even doing this? Do people really care that much
Mm-hmm.
whether we come or not?
Right.
And we landed, and the church was sponsoring this big gospel concert to raise money. I think it was for Children's Cancer Society, but over there, Lithuania. And we landed and changed clothes and ran straight to the venue. Got there like a third of the way through the show, and there's probably, I don't know, 6, 7, 800 people there, maybe 1,000. And we walked in and made our way to some seats, and people just started coming out of the stands to greet us.
Yeah.
And it was like we were rock stars.
Yeah. Like you were doing a concert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were just back. I mean, the concert was going on, because a lady that was singing, she's like, I thought, those must be those people they're talking about, because everybody's flooding. It really wasn't that many,
Right.
10, 15 people or something, but just to feel that much love
Right.
made it, really worth the 3 week gruel to get there.
Is there somebody there that you have a special relationship with that you kind of like, you know what? I always think about Lithuania. I think about them.
We have 3 girls that are about the ages of our daughters, and we call them our Lithuanian daughters.
Yeah.
We say, we adopted them. So our Lithuanian daughters are always super close to our hearts. Of course, the pastor and their 2 sons are very close to our heart. The girls, 2 of the girls have children now, so we have Lithuanian granddaughters. The pastor and I and his son went into a little Chipotle-esque place. It's independent there. And the lady has known him for like 10 years. And she's like, oh, you brought your father. He said, no. And he's like, well, yeah, more or less.
More or less, yeah.
So we have all those people. And then there's a guy that we met in the 2nd or 3rd year that we're real close to. We've had him and one of our daughters and a couple of our what we call older granddaughters come, and we've taken them around places in the U.S., and that's been a lot of fun.
What's one thing though that Americans we wouldn't know, we don't understand about Lithuania?
I think one of the big things is how much they've been through. When we got there, they had only been out of Soviet rule for 22 years.
Hmm.
Officially were cleared in 92, right? They have a museum that is actually in a building that the KGB occupied that you can go through and see the cells and stuff. And there's carved on the stones outside are the names of all the people that were killed during the Soviet rule through torture and inquisition and things. So I think the average American doesn't realize, that this small European country has been trampled across back and forth for quite some time, but particularly under that Soviet rule. And so when they see there's Ukraine flags all over Vilnius because they are in solidarity with them because they know if Russia gets away with what they're trying to get away with in Ukraine, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia are next. So, and there's a small, what do they call it, intercoastal island off the coast of Lithuania in the Baltic Sea. Half of that island actually belongs to Russia. It's called Kaliningrad.
Okay.
So Russia has an ideal excuse to say, oh, we need a land bridge, which is how they started the whole Ukrainian thing.
But what are the people like? Are they, overall, what are the people like?
So the church is very young in general because you have the people that grew up in Soviet rule are either Catholic, Russian Orthodox, or non-denominational.
Okay.
Not non-denominational, non-religious.
Got it.
Sorry,
Okay.
Wrong words.
Big difference.
Yeah, huge difference. And I'm not knocking them. It's just they were not allowed to go to church when they were kids and so on. So by the time the Soviets left, they're in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. They're not making a lot of radical change. Few people are, but the younger people are much more open and much more cosmopolitan. Much more curious about the whole Western world. And they're actually part of the Western world, so they're more open and friendly, but it's a cold climate, right? It's like a little colder than a Chicago, not much, but a little. And, if you actually start to study that kind of stuff, warm weather climate people are more open and friendly than cold climate people because we're out and about, right? We pass each other on the trail and say, hey, that's how you and I met.
Right.
Whereas in Lithuania, you pass people on the sidewalk, you're all bundled up. You get about 4 months a year that you're wearing a short sleeve shirt and not
your breath,
a sock cap and a muffler, So.
Oh, wow. So then life threw you a challenge here,
Yes.
a little curveball, so to
Yes.
speak. In 2021, you suffered a serious sports accident, and doctors said you had a 1% chance of ever moving again. What went through your mind when you heard that?
By the time I heard that, they had already kind of changed their prognosis. I was out for almost a full week.
Okay, so what happened?
So what happened was I was playing softball with this church league that we have had since 96. Actually had teams before that, but we formed our own league and have all our teams are from associated to our church. We recruit friends and co-workers and those kind of things. But we were playing softball, and at the age of 60, thanks to COVID, because of all the time COVID gave me, I was literally in the shape of my life. So I'm, out there playing better than I had played in 4 or 5 years for sure.
Right.
And I have to tell you what they told me because I don't remember, but I was playing catcher and a guy was running in to score, and to him, what he sees is there's no chance of a play at the plate. So he's just running in full speed.
Right.
What is happening is that a throw is coming in and it's away from me, so I spin to try to catch it and spin right into him, and his thigh collides with my head and neck
Yeah.
and fractured my C4 and ruptured a blood vessel. So I was laying on the field barely breathing, and just that's where God started kind of taking over already. There was a nurse in the stands, and she ran down and starts talking to me, breathe, breathe. And they said I was just like taking in a short breath every little bit. I wasn't breathing normally. Of course, the ambulance got there. They just throw me on a stretcher. My head is flopping around.
Yeah.
Nobody knows at that moment. Take me to emergency. My son-in-law was playing with me, and he gets the fun job of calling his wife and my wife and saying, it's really bad. You need to get here. And so my daughter drives all the way from Frisco to Wiley, gets my wife, flies up to Allen. We played in Allen, the Allen Emergency Center. They're like, we're going to have to care flight him into Plano. Plano Trauma Center up there. I'm not sure exactly where it is, but near Willow Bend. And the helicopter guy is like to my daughter, do not try to beat the helicopter to the hospital. Don't. People do this. Try. Don't do it. Well, of course, she beat the helicopter to the hospital, and they were there waiting for it.
Overachiever.
Yeah. But I was unconscious until I think I woke. This happened on a Thursday night, and I think my first conscious recollection of waking up was on Wednesday. And I had no idea what happened.
Right.
I was on a ventilator because I couldn't breathe on my own. I had a pipe crammed down my throat and one up my nose to, dump food into me. And so I wake up, and my wife is there, and they're trying to talk to me. And of course, I couldn't talk because I have the thing, and they end up writing the alphabet on a whiteboard, and we're playing the game that I'm doing this, to say it's A or B, those kind of things. And they say, well, there's a terrible accident. You're hurt really, really bad. You're in ICU, and this is March of 21, so there's still COVID protocols.
Right.
So only my wife was allowed in there. They finally made an exception for my daughter from Chicago because they played the Chicago card. She flew down, just let her see. So probably 2 or 3 days after that, I finally understood that I'd had a softball accident.
Oh, wow.
And it was probably, I didn't remember anything from like 2 or 3 days before that accident until a week or two later. Finally, it filled in. I got all the way up to lunchtime of the day of the accident. I still can't remember anything after lunchtime of the accident. So the story they told me was my wife. So let me go backwards for a second.
Sure.
Besides getting my wife to the hospital, the first thing my oldest daughter is doing is reaching out to family and saying, it's horrible, you've got to pray. And all of my family is reaching out to all of the church family, and I am not exaggerating when I say there were thousands of people praying for me. I had my pastor was in the parking lot walking around the hospital while they did the surgery. We had people in Lithuania and New Zealand and all over the U.S. praying for me. But the surgeon came out after the surgery and said to my wife, look, and of course it's their job, to not build up false hopes.
Right.
But he said, look, it's bad. here's how bad it is. We don't know how long he was without oxygen. So if he wakes up, we don't know what kind of a brain he's going to have left, what kind of a mind he will have left. And there is less than a 1% chance that he will ever be able to move again. I've done the surgery, but we don't know how damaged the spinal cord is, and we know it's bad enough that it's highly likely that he won't be able, to walk. You need to prepare yourself to pull the plug. Oh, this is what the neurosurgeon is telling my wife. So, my wife was later talking to my daughter on the phone and had her, like on the speakerphone while she's talking to me. And my daughter says, I love you, Dad. And my toes twitched. So the surgeon came in a while later, and my wife Janet said, hey, his toes moved. And he's like, I'll believe that when I see it. She's like, well, let me get my daughter on the phone. So she gets her on the phone, and her and her husband, and they bridge up my youngest daughter, and they're all yelling, we love you, Dad. And my toes twitched again. And the surgeon's like, well, then he'll probably be walking in no time.
Just like that?
Just like that.
Wow.
From he has no hope to, that little bit of movement tells me everything. Well, how that tells them everything, I don't know, because,
who cares?
I'm 4.5 years down the road, and I could still complain about what isn't fully working.
Yeah.
But I prefer to celebrate all the things that are. But I was in the hospital for 100 days. I couldn't, by the time I got out, I couldn't lift my own hand in a curl motion. I had lost 32 pounds, which 28 of it was muscle, at least. And they had started me in rehab. When I walked in a walker, I could walk about 75 feet, but I had a nurse behind me, and a nurse in front of me, and a nurse beside me, somebody pushing a wheelchair behind me, my wife usually, in case I fell or had to sit down. But I had went through that. I couldn't swallow. Apparently my esophagus had been crushed when they did the trach and the surgery, and it took us until like day 80 something before they finally got that all figured out and did a balloon thing. So when I say to you, I had many, many miracles. First of all, the fact that when I woke up, I had my mind. It was a matter of days before I'm like, we've got bills to pay, which I can't talk, right? So I am spelling out to my wife how to tell my son-in-law what my passwords are and what bills had to get paid, and all of this stuff, which he was a superhero throughout this whole thing, just ran everything for us. But I couldn't eat. They eventually put a portal in my stomach and just dumped fluid directly into my stomach. Was the only, because of the esophagus thing. Then, so I had my mind, which was, some of you would still suspect whether I have my mind, but, they were actually very concerned because of how long I went without proper breathing. And then that 1% chance of ever moving again, and I actually have full ability everywhere. I still have some limitations in my left arm, and I don't have, full strength. I can't walk as much as I used to, or nearly as fast as I used to. And then I had a right angle glaucoma attack right in the middle of all of that. I didn't even know I had any glaucoma. It took them 2 days to figure out what it was. I almost lost my right eye.
Wow.
But again, the God thing, they finally take me from the Baylor Hospital across the street to the Baylor emergency room, And lo and behold, this doctor, who is like a 60 some odd year old eye surgeon, takes one look and he's like, I know what's going on. He puts some drops in and the pain starts going away and starts saving my eye. And, just for him to be there, because, a young guy had already come in and was like, oh, it's a mess. Let me go get somebody else.
Right.
Um, and then the eating thing, it's just, I could go on and on about all the things God did to bring me to this point.
So here you are. You were just making a play on softball,
Right.
and next thing you know, you're in the emergency room. You can't talk, and you finally wake up. But after 4 days, maybe 5 days,
5 or 6 days,
yeah, and that has to be. And now you're looking around and saying, "How did I get here?"
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was wild.
and then you probably saw the concerns on their faces, probably, but a little excitement too because he's awake.
Right.
Right. But when was there a moment you felt God's presence the most, and when it was like the most clearly, I guess?
Yeah, I would say so. I was in ICU, I think, for like 10 days or something like that. And
Mm-hmm.
then they moved me to a life care facility where I was at for 30 days to get me good enough to go to Baylor where they could start doing some rehab. And when we got to that life care place was when they were able to pull the trach. I'd gotten off a ventilator, and they pulled the trach, and I was able to talk. And so, for the first time, in whatever it had been since I'd woken up a week and a half, I was able to actually talk. And again, Janet's the only person that is there because of COVID restrictions. But we started talking, and I started to actually understand just how messed up I was.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly started feeling like God's going to use this. We're going to reach people through this.
Mm-hmm.
And we started praying specifically for the person that I collided with, who's been a friend for over 20 years. And he was absolutely devastated, of course,
Right, yeah.
because it's just things happen, right? But it was probably harder for him than me because I was unconscious and drugged up, right?
Right.
um,
Oh man.
but that turned into praying for other people, and it just really shifted our whole perspective to, I'm going to be all right. It's just going to take a while. Now, I wish I could tell you that I, never rode down the roller coaster and got in the pits again, but that would be a lie.
Right.
I, especially in that 100 days in the hospital and the first couple months of getting out of the hospital and coming home and being so unbelievably limited in what I could do, that I had a lot of those moments of, like, what is the point? And am I ever going to actually get better? That it doesn't count, that I can walk across the living room and sit in my wheelchair.
Right.
That's not better.
Right.
So I definitely had doubts and down days for sure, but it started, that upward presence of God and reassurance started when we moved in and I was able to actually talk about, what happened.
Did you did you ever feel like Job a little bit? It's like, okay, I I mean, with God, and you're like, okay, because Job went through a whole lot of stuff, and he was and he's like, why?
Yeah, I think that's the um, typical way everybody thinks of when they have suffering, right? Is
Hmm.
like, oh, poor pitiful me.
Right.
Um, and I don't mean this in an arrogant way at all. It was more like, um, just this struggle of understanding what is the purpose. What am I supposed to be doing? You've
Right.
saved my life. There, it's a whole long sidebar, but for the week prior, I had been having, to the accident, I've been having strange thoughts. We went hiking out in like Bandera State Park. It's south. It's by Kerrville, I think. Anyway, all before we left, I kept thinking, I need to give my son-in-law, I need to make sure he knows where my will is. I'm like, why am I thinking this? This is stupid. And I moved on. I never did anything about it. But I suspect strongly that God was trying to tell me, your time's about up. And then for whatever great reason, he changed his mind, and I deeply appreciate that.
Right.
But I say that to say, I was at home, and I was praying one day. I'll try not to be emotional about it, but I said, now God, I don't understand. You know that I've been talking to you for the last 2 years through this COVID, and I would try to do anything that you asked me to do. So why is this happening? And I felt very, very clearly, I'm not a person that runs around saying, oh, God told me. I never do that.
Right.
Twice in my life, I've felt like I really got a message from God, and 3 times if you count this one, but it was like clear as day. He said, this is what I'm asking you to do. And so I choose to trust that there's a purpose that I can't see, and that somebody will be touched. Maybe, I'm sure I will never know,
Right.
but that's okay.
Right. What was it like when you, the very first time you saw the guy your friend that ran into you? What was that like?
It was great. It was about, let me think, 6 months after the accident. The fall season had started. They were playing. And I was to the point that we were like, okay, I can get in and out of the car and get in a wheelchair. I can walk short distances. So we went up to the ballpark, and I went, because again, with COVID, he couldn't just come see me. And then by the time I was home, it was anticlimactic because it had been 4 months since it had happened. So I just went out to the ballpark, and my wife and daughter rolled me up, and I'm sitting there, and he came up. Well, by then I was able to stand up. I just couldn't, and I could walk a little bit, but I couldn't walk real far. So we'd always take the wheelchair behind me. And so he saw me and came up, and we just hugged. And, he was, of course, overjoyed that I was okay, and distraught that it had ever happened. And I'm just like, it's all good. It's if you're not bleeding, you're not playing. It's my attitude.
Yeah.
It remains.
How has surviving this extreme challenge changed how you live now?
I think I just relish everything a lot more. The little things as much as the big things. I was never a patient person. And I did not grow more patient through this experience. I probably grew a lot less patient. I tell people I'm the guy that if it says, no more than 10-second ad when I'm playing a game on the phone. I'm counting the 10 seconds. And I'm like, okay, I'm not playing this game anymore. They took 12
Nice. Okay,
seconds.
that's
You
it.
know?
I'm done.
They lied to me. So I do get really impatient, with lack of progress, or if something, doesn't work right or whatever. I have less patience.
Right.
But in the big picture, I have a lot more peace, and I do, just relish even the little things of,
Right.
like walking in the morning, even though it's kind of a struggle.
Right. And some of the things you relish, music. You're big into music,
Yep.
and so you grew up in music. What was I know this is a bad segue, but you love music, and which is
Yes.
the reason I saw you
Right.
was in the trail one day. I saw you said I love vinyl, and I went, okay, this guy's got to be great because anybody that loves vinyl, it's
Yeah.
got to be cool. So when did your love affair with vinyl start?
Um, I'm going to say 72-ish. I would have been 12, turning 13 at that point in time. Was aware of music then, listened to the radio a little bit and that kind of
Hmm.
thing, but uh, didn't have a record player of my own. Didn't really need one because, at most I would turn on the pop radio.
Right.
My cousin, there's four of us. We call each other brother cousins because we're closer than cousins. Came to live with us, get out of a bad environment that he was facing in his school, and he brought 3 or 4 albums with him and a little turntable that he had, like one of those suitcase kind,
Hmm.
right? And that's really where it started, was listening to those albums with him, and then my uncle gave us a couple more, and then I bought my first one, and away we
What
go.
was your first one?
The first one I ever bought was Three Dog Night, captured live at the Forum,
Okay. All right.
which is still, in my opinion, one of the most excellent live albums out there.
All right. Nice.
Not better than Allman Brothers
Right.
at the Fillmore East, but
What's one of your more rarest, or I guess meaningful records? That means the most, I guess.
um, I have a copy of Pink Floyd Umaguma that my roommate in the Air Force gave me
Okay.
when we became roommates because uh, he went by my room when his roommate was moving, and he saw that I had a bunch of vinyl, and he's like, "You're the guy with all the vinyl. You want to be roommates?" Sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
Because he had some great twin tower PV speakers,
Oh,
and so
okay.
that was a match made in heaven.
Yeah. I was gonna say.
So that album, and then I have still some of the original records that I bought back. I still have that captured live at the Forum, and a few others
Nice.
from that era. And then I have a couple of copies that are pirate Russian releases. So basically, they just made unauthorized copies of vinyl, and they kind of made their own covers. So I have a Rolling Stones "Let It Bleed," which, if you remember, is on the original, it's like a photograph of a cake
Right.
that is like it's playing a phonograph. The Russian version, it's a sketch, colored sketch of
Okay.
the same thing. Uh, I posted it on Reddit, and somebody said the Russian actually translates to "let the blood flow."
A little different.
But I have 3 or 4 of those: a Zeppelin, a Dylan, and a John Lennon, and a Beatles. So 5, I guess. Those are meaningful. And then I have 2 collections that friends gave me their collections, and
Right.
so those are meaningful as collections.
Right. Yeah. Did you go to a lot of concerts growing up?
My first concert was in 1977, senior year. I went and saw Led Zeppelin at the St. Louis Arena.
Oh, okay.
That was my first show.
Wow.
Went to a ton of shows through my Air Force years, and then I've went to a few since then. So I've seen most of the big guys.
Yeah. And when you say the big guys, we're talking about.
I saw, you know, um, Zeppelin again at Nebworth. I saw Rush and Alice Cooper and Hart and the Stones and the Who, and um, I guess the big ones I missed were I never saw Pink Floyd and I never saw the Beatles, of
Okay,
course.
but otherwise, you got some of the big boys right there,
Yeah,
real quick.
yeah.
Yeah, nice of it. Was there a favorite concert you had that was one of your favorites, or?
Neil Young is one of my favorite artists of all time, and I saw him on the Rest Never Sleeps tour.
Okay.
That was fantastic. That's the one that he did the giant amps, and he kind of played Woodstock clips in between his sets and stuff.
All right.
Um, and then when I saw Zeppelin the second time, it was a big outdoor concert in England. There was like 160,000 people there,
Right.
and it went from noon to midnight. Zepp did a 4-hour set.
Nice.
It was a lot of fun.
Was there a certain song that you had during recovery that really inspired you, or you kept saying, "This is the song I want to hear"? Because you like music now, like you listen every day
Pretty
to vinyl.
close,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I was like, I've always been a little bit this way. Songs will just come in my head, and they usually will come. I can't figure out where they came from,
Right.
right? And but with the combination of all the drugs they had on me, I have this is
Woodstock.
yeah. Uh, well, sidebar tribute to God. When I came back to God, started dating my wife, I really felt like I had a heart of stone. I just could feel no emotions or anything, and I'm like, coming back to God is not going to work if I can't
Right.
feel. And I always say, he thought it would really be really funny to give me a heart made of butter. So I am fairly emotional, and have been. I mean, I teach Sunday school, and the leader used to say to the kids, "Now, don't make Mr. Dan cry," because anytime I'd tell him something impactful,
Yeah.
But I said all that to say, whatever they had me on in the hospital, it didn't take anything to make me cry. I mean, so I would. My daughter would visit one day a week. My wife was a warrior. She came to the hospital for the full visiting hours every single day for the 100 days. She took one day a week off at our insistence, and my daughter came and spent the whole day
There we go.
in her place. And so uh, I would have her play me songs off my phone. I have all of my music on all of my digital music on a phone.
Right.
And I'd be like, "Oh, play this song." And I'd start to cry. And I'd be like, "Okay, play a different song." Because every song had so much
Right.
meaning, right? Because, when apparently you're that close to death, you
Right.
find the meaning in everything.
The cover of the Rolling Stones.
Exactly.
I'm gonna cry.
I'm going to
Yeah.
break up. Yeah.
Okay, so but then you're also a huge sports fan. I mean,
Yes.
and not just baseball,
Monsters.
but just like every sport.
Yes. Baseball, football, basketball,
Right.
hockey. They give me a hard time. I'm even starting to watch soccer.
There. Okay. Okay. All right. So do you have particular certain players or certain team? Of course, the Cardinals.
Of course, the Cardinals.
Understood.
Yes.
But is there anybody else that you go, I love this guy, or I follow? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so I tell people, I would root for the Cardinals if they were playing against a team that was owned by my mom, coached by my brother, and played on by my daughter.
Okay.
It wouldn't matter. I'm a Cardinals
Cardinal
fan.
fan. Yeah.
But I am a Rangers fan. They're my American League team, and
Right.
only once has that come to a conflict, and there was no conflict.
Compartmentalized
Cardinals
pretty well.
all the way.
Yeah. Okay.
But I also, I love the Vikings and the Chiefs in football, and love the Stars and the Blues in hockey, and love the Mavs. Um, and I love the Tar Heels. I spent 4 years in Carolina with the Air Force.
Okay.
So I picked them up, and then I went to TCU for my master's at
Right.
night. So I'm a Horned Frog and big Horned Frog fan.
You
So
are way all over the. I mean,
I'm
Minnesota,
all over
Tar
the map.
Heels.
That's right.
Wow. Okay.
Well, if you ever saw the football team in St. Louis in the 70s, you'd know why I wasn't a
They
football
were pretty.
Cardinal fan.
Jim Hart too. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then you had the Rams, Kurt Warner
right,
years,
right.
and I love me some Kurt Warner.
Yes.
And then they up
Yeah,
and left, but
yeah,
yeah, we'll win it and then we'll leave. We're out of here. And then you like photography,
yep.
okay? And
Uh,
was there a beautiful place though that you like to photograph the most? And what kind of photography do you like doing?
I like not people,
Okay.
right? I'll do a cityscape kind of thing, or if I can catch a candid of a unique situation,
Mm-hmm.
like we were in, I think it was Amsterdam, and a guy was sitting in the second floor window with his leg hanging out playing an accordion or
Yeah.
something, like that that kind of person shot. But mostly I like nature and landscapes and those
Right.
things. And we spent 6 weeks in New Zealand driving self-drove both islands, and
Oh,
that was
wow.
like the most spectacular place.
If you have you been back to Lithuania since your accident?
Yes,
Okay. Is there?
3 times.
Oh, okay. Well, then you're overachiever. Is there something there that you would photograph differently?
Differently from,
Like you've taken some pictures, I would imagine, in
oh,
Lithuania.
so many.
Is there something you wish you could still do, or you're saying no, I've gotten everything, or I mean, 'cause that's a big country, right?
No, it's not very
Oh, okay.
big. You can fit 10 Lithuanias in Texas. Um, I think it's maybe half the size or a little 2/3 the size of Arkansas.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, but no, there's always something to see. That's the why I love photography, right?
Right.
It's like we were walking along, and I said, "Oh, I've taken a picture of this church tower so many times from so many angles, yet I just saw another angle.
The sun hits
Stop
us a
this,
certain way. Yeah.
stop the train. I gotta, take this picture here." Um, I love the changing of light and those kind of things. I see how Monet got wrapped up in painting the same thing over and over again
Hmm.
with different light. Um,
And you like to travel,
I love to
and
travel.
so that helps you with the photography too. So,
Yes.
what are some of your most favorite places you like to travel to?
Well, of course, New Zealand was great. Um, One-time trip was China. That was spectacular, but it's not where I want to go back again.
Right, right, right.
Um, we love Europe, particularly Italy, and of course Lithuania.
Right,
I love London. Not a huge fan of Paris.
right. Yeah, nice. And then you also like to read.
Yes,
Y-
huge reader.
Your library is quite extensive,
Yeah,
and it's eclectic too. So it's kind of like. So, what kind of books do you like to read?
I'm kind of all over the map. I am huge into history, particularly World War One, but also just I don't want to say odd history, but off the beaten path history.
Hmm.
Like, have you heard of the Johnstown flood
In
in
Pennsylvania?
Pennsylvania?
Yeah,
There's a great book on that
I've been there. Yeah,
called Ruthless Tide. Well worth a read.
right.
Um, I love, just about all of any history stuff like that. Um, Politics, some, but looking backwards, mostly 70s and
Right,
before. And then I still love fiction,
right.
science fiction and regular fiction.
Is there a book you would recommend to everyone?
For pure fiction, I would say if you have not read Grapes of Wrath or Huckleberry Finn, you've got to read those.
Right,
If you've read those,
classics.
then I move to. Um, I don't have my list with me. I just read a book I really loved called Humans by
Hmm.
Matt Haig
Okay.
that was fascinating. Um, and then in nonfiction, this was actually called historical fiction, but Killer Angels by Michael Shara is about the Battle of Gettysburg.
Oh,
And
okay.
it is told with such personal feeling. Uh, I challenge you to read it and not be hooked.
Yeah.
And there's a book about Al Shackleton, and I'll shackle forward
The
and the
art,
expedition
yeah.
Endurance, and the book is called Endurance. And if you read that book, I think you will just be amazed at
Right.
what those people accomplished.
What all they came through. Okay. So after everything, service, family, faith, and recovery, and you've done that one, what surprised you most about yourself?
Besides recovering from the accident, just that I have been able to experience so much and do so much, and that God has been mindful of me.
What do you think God has saved you for?
I don't know who, but I know for sure it's to reach people for Him.
Right. Cool.
Whether it's just sharing His love with people that already know Him and helping strengthen them, or introducing somebody completely new, I don't know.
Right. Not
I,
for you to know, just
I
for you to
always
do.
tell people my job is to love people.
Right. Nice. So what do you have? Do you have a message for people that feels hopelessness? What would a message you would give them?
My message would be that I believe there is a God and He does care for you. And if you feel like He doesn't, then you're victim to whatever is happening in your own mind or outside of you has distorted it. If you reach out to Him, He will reach out to you. There is hope. When there's only a 1% chance, there's still hope. You know, it's like the Dumb and Dumber movie. After he gets turned
still
down,
a
he's
chance.
like, "So you're saying there's a chance?"
I love that saying. Oh, and what does gratitude mean now to you?
I think it is just being honestly thankful. So, you know, like before the accident, I would be like, I try to pray while I walk, right? And it's more conversational. It's actually me asking God to do a whole bunch of stuff, whether, you know, He particularly wants to or not, you know. But I would always start out with, you know, Lord, I thank you for this day, and I thank you for the ability to, you know, get out and do stuff and blah, blah, blah. Now, when I say that, I mean it. It's true gratitude.
Right.
It's a recognition of like this single day is special.
What do you hope your story teaches others?
I hope it teaches others that God does love them, and that, you know, if you team with Him, you're capable of reaching your potential, and your potential may not be anything that looks flashy, but it can still be impactful. You know, to me, I don't have a flashy, big, whoop-de-doo life that I went and invented something special or made $1 billion or anything, but I know for sure that my wife and I have touched the hearts of people, and we were only able to do that because of God.
How do you want to be remembered?
The nutshell or super short statement is I want everybody to say he loved God and his wife and his daughters more than he loved himself.
Yeah, that's a good thing right there. Good. Dan, your life is a testament of faith, perseverance, of course, and the miracles that can happen when hope never dies. From the Air Force, service to family, Lithuania, serving the impossible and rediscovering passions. Your story reminds us all the dash between our birth and our final day is what we fill with courage, love, and purpose. And honestly, you've touched me, and I appreciate that. And I know someone out there is going to listen to it and touch them as well. And I appreciate you doing your journey here with us on My Dash Story. And if you get a chance, people, to like and subscribe to the channel and to share and comment about Dan's story, I appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you guys next time on My Dash Story.